Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where it's about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Flash. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, Cisco and Camilla tell Team Flash and Team Citizen that they're leaving. I wasn't expecting to be a thing of like, yeah, we're leaving tomorrow. It's like, wow, you guys really, I mean, I guess with everything that was going on, plus you were dealing with the forces, it's like, now that everything's calmed down, this is kind of perfect opportunity, but it's like, wow, you cut that close to the wire. You guys are literally leaving the next day. It's also kind of messed up. You kind of gave no one any notice, and immediately with their reactions, you're almost like, because I love the whole thing of like, oh my God, are you guys pregnant? It's like, no, Cisco's got a job at Argus. It's a particular new division that agent that's been talking to him is talking about. It's basically what was it? God, I don't even remember what the acronym was, but it was dealing with like cosmic stuff like that. I guess that's the type of stuff they're going to be like looking into and investigating with this particular Argus unit. It turns out like Diggle and Lila are actually the reason why he kind of was able to get the job. They put in a good word for him and everything. So, which we're going to see a lot more Diggle kind of floating around. Not only do you have David Ramsey, directing the episode 7 of Superman and Lois, but also spoilers. Like he's going to pop up in the next episode of Batwoman, which I wasn't aware. I kind of stumbled across, so it's a little bit of a spoiler. But regardless, I think it's like, hey, once again, the beauty of the Arrowverse and stuff like that, and that applies to this too. Just because it's the ending of an era doesn't mean it's the end. It's like even though Carlos or Tom are no longer going to be on the show. Like, obviously, like, Carlos can always return as Cisco at any point in time. Obviously, the door is, like, always open for both of them, respectively, to return as their respective characters. But, nevertheless, you could tell immediately that everyone's like, oh, yeah, congratulations. It's kind of like oh, wow, we're taken aback by this, but we're going to pretend like everything's okay. But sadly, they overcorrected throughout the episode, because eventually it's like, oh, they took that well. Yeah, I guess we were worried about nothing. Barry ended up packing up all of Cisco's stuff. It especially hit Cisco pretty hard because Chester's the only one that was kind of like, man, it's gonna be sad not having you around, bro. And he's like, oh, you're actually the first one to actually say that. But he's like, no, I'm sure everyone's, feels the same way. He's like, right, they're just trying to fight back the tears and stuff like that. But then like seeing that Barry had already packed up all his stuff, and you had Caitlin just being like, okay, so we're gonna need your like security pass and all that stuff, and he's just like, oh, like once again, they're just overcorrecting because for one, they want to send him off positively because they don't want their like last meeting to be like full of tears and stuff like. But sadly, like I said, they overcorrected, which understandable. So because it's like because once again, it was so last minute too, and I even love the line from Barry where he was basically like, I had to be extra okay with it because if I wasn't, like, I would have asked you to stay. And he's like, I know that you probably would. And he's like, that wouldn't be fair for you because this is an opportunity that, it's a great opportunity I wouldn't want you to miss. And, Caitlin, feels the same way. It's just like, and she's, tearing up. It's like, especially because it's like, this is the trifecta. Yeah, it also included Wales, which was actually Eobard, but still, like, this is the trifecta. This right here is the core. This triangle has always been the heart of Team Flash, of Star Labs, Cisco at the center, but it's like, all three of them together, and now that dynamic's kind of changing, and, changes, it's a little scary and it's sad, but it's also a happy time and a beautiful time as well, I also love, like, Cisco, like, it's like, oh, yeah, let me take you check this place. Chester's like, whoa, this room was here the other time. It's like, yeah, to be fair, I haven't done, any God, what was the word he was using? That basically he hasn't like really checked in on the room and like organized stuff. He's like, I haven't done it for the past 6 years, but it's like, yeah, I think you see all the different stuff. Obviously, the Thinker's chairs in there, just different stuff from their adventures over the course of the series. It's obviously like it hits Cisco with all the stuff that he's like invented and stuff like that for Team Flash. But the villain they're going up against is a woman named Carrie, but Rainbow Raider 2.0. That basically she kind of euphorias like people's brains into making them more susceptible to do whatever she wants them to. So I love like when they try to stop her. Cisco gets whammied, and I love the whole thing of him. And Barry's like, okay, we're doing this. out in public. It's like, yeah, just stop fighting, just embrace it. It's like, okay, you can stop now. He's like, I don't want to, you know, just to kind of just accept it. And he's just acting crazy and weird. And then I love Barry getting went. Well, first and foremost, I love that he's bringing up like those cat videos while Barry's trying to run and Barry can't see anything. So he literally slams into a truck. But then Barry gets whammied, and then break dances. I love it. It's like, wait, you need to stop. Like, what? We need to break up the dancing. It's like, oh, break dancing, and then Barry does his thing, and it's like, and I love even Caitlin being like, how do you know how to break dance? He's like, I watched like 17 YouTube videos about it. I speed watched 17 break dancing videos or something like that. But I also love when your boy Chester comes in and he's doing his thing too. I'm like, you're not even whammied, and I mean, it's just like that's just Chester, you know. Default, you know, and just like, oh, dance it too. It's like, oh, pass it, oh, take it, now pass it back. I was like, dude, I was like, I'm loving it, and it's like, it feels so good that like this is the type of episode we get for like, you know, Cisco's quote unquote last episode, at least, you know, for now. But he was able to unwhammy them. But it turns out, interestingly enough, through his conversation with Cisco about, you know, there would be no Flash without Cisco. I mean, you know, I could even have a montage later on. I love of like all the different like all villain names he came. It's like, right, we're not gonna have Cisco here to give any villain names either, too. Dude. It's like, you know, it's like every time they come up with a villain name, it's gonna be like isn't that right? And they have to look and probably see like, oh, right, no Cisco. I guess it's going to be up to Chester now. It's like, you know, I'm kind of his successor, so I'm going to be the one handing out the names now. Granted, Cisco wasn't always the one who got him. He was just like, darn, that's actually a good name, and I'm not the one who came up with it. So, you know, it's kind of crazy to think about, like, yeah, that's kind of been, like, his shtick. Like, it's his thing, and it's like, it's going to be crazy to not have him do that. Like I said, someone else is going to fill that role. I'm assuming it's going to be Chester. I hope when it does come down to it, Chester does stumble a little bit. He's like, right, that's not good. And eventually he gets it, and it's like he's fully embracing, like, I'm, you know, Cisco's successor in more ways than one. So I think that'd be kind of pretty dope if they handled it like that. But I thought it was interesting how they handled the whole Carrie thing, because she wasn't actually hurting or killing anyone. She was like, you know, she was like whammying people, but that's about it. But it turns out that basically she works for multiple collector agencies, and the reason why she got fired from multiple is because anytime there were people who were going through some struggles, like some really tough times, she'd kind of like erase their like what they owe and stuff like that. So this is her way of trying to help out people. Granted, she's going about it like a little bit of the wrong way, because it's like she stole all this stuff she stole, she's trying to give to people, which, you know, it's like, and then it's like for her, and I thought it was kind of an interesting element that they kind of introduced. It's like, right, that there are people that need help. Like, yeah, you do do your thing, but when you're gone, there's still people who have to kind of pick up the pieces after everything. It's like, it's something that never, like, it doesn't really get tackled too much in, you know, shows like the aftermath of like superheroes doing their things. There's only like a few things that have ever really tackled that element. So, but this kind of tackled that a little bit, I think, of just like, right, people are struggling, can't put enough food on the table, you know, and, you know, it's like when you've done saving the day, like, there's only, because it is a conversation, you know, because even like Ava Monarch, couldn't say that word, geez, kind of tackled it a little bit of like, right, you saving the day is one thing, but I could do so much more. I could save the world. There's only like so much you can do with your powers. You're saving the day and everything like that, but there's a lot of issues around the world. So it's kind of almost of that same vein of what she's trying to do, which because of that, Barry's like, I totally understand, and because of that, like, I'm not going to send you to Iron Heights. I'm going to talk to someone to get your sentence reduced and make you kind of work off that debt, but like joining like the committee of kind of, you know, helping around the city and stuff like that. And she's like, wait, you do that for me? He's like, yeah, because I believe you're the right woman for the job. But obviously the blimp situation went haywire, and so it's up to Cisco, and obviously using part of his mecha vibe suit, he was able to kind of get control of the blimp again. Close call. Side note, from a cinematography standpoint, I'm like, I know I'm using terms like that. I'm never like, oh, look at this type of, no, I am sometimes with just some of the Flash stuff, because I'm like, just the look of like all the lightning going in and out of like going in and out of the stadium like that, and like all the lightning trails he left. I was like, oh, I just from a cinematography standpoint, I'm like, I love how that looks. I just thought it's just always dope. It's also interesting too, like, I didn't know, maybe that had come up before, I didn't know that their team was the Sharks. Is that supposed to be like a wink and nod to King Shark that their team like the Bears, because like obviously they're going up against the Gotham Goliaths. It's kind of interesting to know that it was like a 28-0. I was like, oh. It also makes you wonder in this continuity. Obviously, we know his circumstances on another Earth, but what's the Victor Stone situation like on? I would assume he's not cyber. I mean, maybe he doesn't exist on this Earth. We don't know. We know. Once again, I always forget. I think it's like 27, isn't it? Like that's the Titans. That's. No, I think, Doom Patrol. There's something like, they're 20-something. They're Earth 20-something. I don't remember. I can never remember the exact number. But, it might be like 25 or something, 23, 25, something like that. But, it just made me think about that with, like, the Goliaths and everything. I was like, oh, like, I wonder, is there a Victor Stone, or has there already been a Victor Stone there? Whatever the case may be. And I think it's very appropriate for him to kind of be the one that ultimately ends up saving the day. To be fair, he's done it on multiple occasions, because obviously a lot of stuff wouldn't have worked out the way it has without, Cisco, vibe or no vibe. He's been an essential part of this team since the beginning, so he's, saved the day, in more ways than one, so... And it's not just Cisco that was kind of like handling, like everyone was handling this whole like departure like differently, because Iris was kind of making it seem like she was more okay than she was. So like when Camilla's like, oh, I'll help you find my replacement. Like anytime they found a bunch of qualified people, like Iris kept saying no, and then Camilla kept pushing it, and Iris just like, I told you I'll figure it out. She kind of snaps at her because it's just like, because Camilla was kind of rushing her. She's like, no, let me help you find your replacement. It's like, but there's a lot of good people here. She's like, I wasn't good at everything the moment I got here first. So you need to kind of give people time. And she's like, yeah, sure. It's just like, it was all just happening so fast. And Iris, she kind of hid it, didn't hide it as well as like the others, But obviously for her, it's not like I'm just losing someone for the citizen. I'm also losing a friend, I'm saying goodbye. So it makes it, that's why she was kind of feeling the way she was. So, but obviously Cisco coming back, and as like no one's there, and Chester's there, being like, no, go through, do your thing and stuff like that. He's like, okay, and he's like, the fact is he kind of figured out. He's like, oh, it's a surprise party. He's like, yeah, everyone's gonna be over at the loft. The guys are hanging out at the loft. Obviously, the ladies are hitting up the citizen to kind of say their goodbyes to Camilla. So. Obviously, Cisco hands over everything, any ideas and stuff like that he has for like advancements and fixes around Star Labs, and he passes them on to Chester, and it's like, yeah, go check out your new lab. And he's like, my new lab? And it's like, you're not actually going to go to the loft. You're actually going to be too busy reorganizing your new lab, right? He's like, and it's like, it's okay. I completely understand. But it's like, he's like, don't worry, I'm going to be there at like your other goodbye, like tomorrow at Jitters. He's like, I know you will. So I thought it was dope. And like, honestly, like, I really appreciate that Chester and Cisco had like that episode in the 90s episode. I appreciate they were able to have that like one last, like, because obviously this was like a Team Flash all together like goodbye, but like I liked that at the very least in this season, like Chester and Cisco had like that one last like solo adventure together in that episode with Dion and everything. So I thought that was, so. But Chester going to become the new man behind the man in chair, as Ned from the MCU Spider-Man would say, kind of sliding into that position of being kind of the heart of Star Labs and everything. So there was the interesting thing where like Allegra was like, because I forgot she brought that up earlier in the episode. She was like, because like Camilla had taken pictures, like, whoa, is that Cecile? I wonder what she was doing here. And then like as Cecile shows up at the party, the celebration, and Allegra's like, oh yeah, why were you at the crime scene? She's like, oh yeah, I was working on something, but I'm close to finding out, like closing another case. And she's like excited about it. I'm like, that didn't seem suspicious. I mean that sarcastically. Like I was like, yeah, I was like, why she say that so suspiciously? It's like, you're lying. Or maybe she is telling the truth. She's just not telling all the details, which we get to that a little bit later on. But I was like, what's that all about? Like, is that the case? Because part of me is also wondering, like, could it be like the aftermath of being struck by Psyche's lightning? But it seems like it's something else entirely. Like, obviously I'll jump to it, like, at the end, like, once again, like, me being me, ignorant as I am, when I see a gold mask, I think of Dr. Fate. That's the only thing I know. He's the only one I know with a gold helmet. But it's like, there's that gold mask thing. I was like, which is interesting because if someone who's like, oh, you don't know what that is, Michael, it's X, Y, and Z. I know it's not Dr. Fate. I know that, but like I said, it's just like anytime I see that, I associate it. If I'm not mistaken, isn't that the same mask that that dude at the end of Elseworlds was wearing? I don't know who he is. I'm assuming it has something to do with that, like, and why maybe he has some kind of significance to Cecile, because I think Cecile's kind of brought up her past a little bit, but she hasn't talked about it. Like, that's actually something I don't think we've ever really dived too much into Cecile's past. So maybe this could be like where that storyline's going, but whoever it is, it's like someone like whispering to her, and she's like, I'm gonna find you. But it was her with a mask. It was her own reflection, but with the mask. So I'm like, I wonder if there's some connection between her and that dude. Does this have anything to do with her, like, fear from Psyche that she would basically lose control of her power? Like I said, she did get hit by, like, lightning specifically from Psyche when, like, that storm was, like, at its, like, ramping up in Central City. So that's why I'm like, maybe there's something there. I don't know. But circling back, you know, Cisco looking around Star Labs, like I said, reminiscing about everything, like all these moments, you know, with their adventures and everything from the beginning till now, and it's just like it's a nice like little recap and just like it's, you know, small little montage of just being like, you know, and it's just like it makes you sad to see this be the end of an era, but you know, once again, things change, things come to an end, but once again, the door's always open. You know, even they say it within the show, like Joe being like, yeah, you can always come back. You've always got a place to stay here. Oh, you're gonna buy a place in Star City, which I'm like, obviously, sadly, we're not getting the Green Arrow and Canaries. Obviously, that would have been like in 2040, but it still makes you interested to know, like, what's Star City like now? Like after, like, in the aftermath of Arrow. I mean, granted, we know certain guard. Now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, I feel like such an idiot. Like, let's not forget where Diggle's story ended with. I'm like, now that's interesting. I forgot about that. I'm like, right, where his story ended in the series finale of Arrow. I'm like, oh, him popping up again is definitely gonna be interesting to see if they reference that at all. But you would have to. It's such a it's a huge thing. It's a huge deal. But nevertheless, I'd actually I said yeah, the guys and stuff like that. But let's not forget Caitlin's there at the loft as well. Also, I love the text from Frost. What I forgot. It was basically something like backhanded. Where it was like basically, it was like, I hate you. No, like, you make me sick, but I love you, or something. I think that's what it is. And he's like, yeah, Frost is Frost. You know, so. Especially at that time when he wasn't getting the goodbyes and love he was hoping he was going to get from Barry and Caitlin, and he got that from Frost, so I guess that kind of stung a little too. But I love it's like the goodbyes and everything, the shirts, and then singing Poker Face by Lady Gaga, which I've not heard that song in forever. I felt like I was watching something recently that referenced that. Cause he even said to Chester, oh, you're the man now, dog. I'm like, there was something recently that referenced that, because I remember talking about it oh, you're memeing? This show is memeing? Using the Sean Connery line from that TV. It's some movie but it's a meme now just because oh, you're the man now, dog. I referenced that in some review because some show had done that. I just don't remember what it was now. But it's oh, Cisco's memeing now? I mean, granted, it's not a meme. It's just yeah, you're the man now, dog. To a certain extent, yes, it's memeing, but still, it's crazy. But singing Poker Face was so good. That's a banger. You kind of forget about it. You know, I think that was on a you kind of sleep on Lady Gaga's discography, especially some of her big hits, especially back then too. And what always comes to my mind too is I always forget the Of Mice and Men cover that they did of that. Regardless of tangents and all that aside, so that was just kind of a nice moment. All of them joining in, Joe, Caitlin, but it was mainly just Cisco and Barry doing the voices and everything too. Once again, it's just the dancing plus this. It's awesome. I think this was just a nice celebratory goodbye. Like, you know, there was some tears, there were laughs, but it's just a nice. It's one of those things where it's like you can imagine, especially because nothing too bad happened villain wise. It was all kind of on the up and up. It was okay in the long run, and obviously like things are working out for Carrie because it was like the DA kind of agreed to like her kind of working off her sentence and stuff like that. But it was just kind of like a lighthearted episode in that regard, like the main focus being, you know, Camilla and Cisco's goodbyes, and yeah, it was just kind of a nice, fun thing. It's just, it makes you feel like you, even though it's in the confines of the episode, you still feel like you're almost seeing like probably like the behind the scenes stuff too, of just kind of like them just having fun on set, like, you know, all together like one last time like that, you know. So I thought it was kind of a nice send off, while also, like I said, setting up whatever that Cecile situation is at the end. I'm interested to see where that ultimately ends up taking us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.